Hi, I'm Dr. Bertice Berry, and I want to tell you a story. It's the story of a man named John Henry. John Henry was just an everyday person doing his life. In the 1800s, before the end of enslavement, John Henry lived on a plantation with a man named John Hunn. Now, John Hunn had been a wealthy textile merchant, and he did extremely well. But one day his sister came to him. They had been Quakers, and she came to him, and he had on this fancy coat because he did well, and he wanted people to see what he did, so he wore it. And she said to him, "Take off that Babylonianish cloak. Thee has been called to a greater mission." And something struck his heart. And John Hunn took that jacket, his coat, to the tailor, and they had him make it. He took off all the fancy buttons, and he had the tailor to make it into an everyday cloak that he wore for the rest of his life. John Hunn would aid and abet all the fugitive runaways. And John Henry, living on that plantation as a sharecropper, assisted him in doing that. By day and by night, they, in the daytime, they looked like just regular farmers. "How you doing? Yes, sir, boss." At night, they were escorting people from the lower parts of Maryland, Virginia, coming up from the south, up to Dover and into Wilmington to the Philadelphia Commission, where they recorded their stories. And a man named William Still wrote about them in a book called The Underground Railroad. It was re-released recently. Anyway, but I love that book. Let me just say this real quick, because he recorded the names of everybody who ran away, the name that they had before they changed it, and the name of the people they left behind. Oh, what a treasure. Anyway, so John Henry and John Hunn are doing this thing, escorting all these families. And one day they were escorting a group of, I think it was 12 people. And I want to say they were the Hawkins. It was the Hawkins family. He's escorting them all the way into Philadelphia. But they are arrested and they are charged. John Hunn is charged with aiding and abetting. And he goes before a judge. It was a famous judge, actually. Look it up. John Hunn goes before this judge, and the judge says, "Listen, if you will stop doing this, if you'll promise to stop doing this, you know what? I'll let you go. But if you don't, I'm going to take all of your land, all of your property." And John Hunn said, "You can take everything. I will give my life and limb to end this horrible institution of slavery." Well, John Henry knows the way, and he's still doing what he does. But they sold that plantation in an auction. I think they sold it for like $1 or $2 or something to a neighbor because they wanted to make people stop doing this aiding and abetting. John Henry is sold away with the plantation. But John Henry gets a friend, a Quaker friend, to represent him in court. The judge wants to know, what are you here for? What are you trying to claim? And he said, "I was unlawfully took." And they proved that he had been free, and he won his freedom back. And he changed his name from John Henry to John Henry Freeman because he wanted everybody to know that he was a free man. Well, John Henry Freeman is my great-great-grandfather. And to know that my history is the history of an abolitionist is amazing to me. But I didn't always know that history. And I grew up just north of that same place, that same plantation, not knowing that story. My mother knew that story, but it wasn't until years later when she read a book that I'd written and had used the name of John Hunn as the name of the evil slaveholder that she told me, "Hey, no, he was a good man." But I couldn't find him. John Hunn had his son destroy all of his journals. And so here I was, not knowing this history. History is in our backyards. History is in the corners. History is in the corners of your heart. And you just have to look. If you ask out loud, the ancestors will hear you, and they'll start leaving you messages and ideas and information for you to find. Look inside your own self. Look inside your own story. Look inside your heart and be free. I love you.